be a little bit light tonight, but we have you and then two park members joining online, Lindsay and Tim. Still waiting on Brent, our chair. I know he's feeling a little under the weather, but he said he was gonna join, so if you, at 7:05, if you wanna get started until Brent,
Okay.
are you able to do?
Can you win? Yeah, can do roll
Once
call.
we get to roll call, yeah, so we'll just get started with three, and obviously no quorum tonight, no official recommendations with
Yep.
not having five, but we do have a couple presentations and whatnot, so.
Okay.
Give me 1 second here, I'll start
Okay.
recording, so hopefully Brent will join here shortly.
All right. Thanks for joining. We're starting the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, January 21st, meeting. And, so call the meeting order. So that's what I'm just doing. So, preliminary matters. So let's take a roll call if we could. Burton McKenzie is here, present. Brent, are you online yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Tim Martin? All right, thank you, awesome. Lindsay, are you here? All right. And then Martha and Justin are out of town. So given that it's only three of us so far, and maybe Brent will join, we don't have a quorum, so we can't vote on anything official, right? So.
Yeah, no official recommendations on any of these presentations, but certainly you can provide feedback and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Hopefully you guys do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, great. And who else do we have in here in the room?
Councilmember Miller.
Councilmember Miller, alrighty. And you wanna,
I'm Jim Zarski. I'm the chair of ACES. So I'm here to pipe in on item number 3C,
awesome,
water efficiency.
great, awesome, thank you. Approval, moving right along, approval of the agenda. Everybody's good with that. So.
It's kind of nice having this informal meeting.
Yeah, it's gonna go real.
It's very chill.
Do we have any public comment?
I don't see anyone.
Present or online?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so it's a pretty small crowd. Moving right along to discussion item 3A, whole park leadership election, which I think we just move right on from.
Yeah, I talked to Brent, we have to move that to February.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, 3B, ideas for recruiting new park members. We talked about that a little bit on here.
You know what? I've got a neighbor that I would love to get into the park committee. He's awesome. He talked about it. He expressed some interest. Let me see if I can poke him again and see if he's interested.
Awesome. And I know the town has been doing email communication on not just park, but also all the boards, right? I mean.
Yeah, so I mean, 3 vacancies, 6 current members.
I thought there were 4 big.
3.
There are 3. Okay.
There's 3. And there have been 2 new applications, so I think Michaela's gonna get those interviews scheduled soon with council. So we do have 2.
I was gonna ask about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But it's not necessarily unique to park. I know some other committees are struggling a little bit with some vacancies, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we do our typical, communications department puts information out, it's in our newsletter, and any way we can plug it, we try.
All right. Those applications have been received?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, moving around, anybody have anything else on that? Any ideas? Lindsay or Tim? Otherwise, you tell me, Tim just had an idea, but. No, moving right along.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
Lindsay, I don't know if you chimed in, we couldn't really hear you, maybe you didn't. All right, I don't think so.
Okay. All right, 3C.
Yeah, you wanna say?
Superior partnership with Water Now Alliance.
Yeah, so this one was added, we have some folks online, and they're gonna share a presentation, you guys wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, and I need Will as one of those, so Will, let me know if you have any issues with sharing the screen or whatnot.
Yep, I see. Yep, I see. You just made me the co-host, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
I will. I'll pass it over to Carrie to get going on introductions and let folks know what we're here for.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Will. Yeah. Hi, everybody. We're excited to be here today. My name is Carrie. I'm a program manager at Water Now, and I'm based out of Denver. And yeah, I think we'll get started with the presentation in a second, but I'll pass it over to my colleague, Victoria, now to introduce herself.
Hey everyone, I'm Victoria Arling. I'm Water Now's Colorado Basin Program Director. Very excited to be here tonight. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to share a little bit about what we've been doing with the town. We'll dive into some details soon. And I'm based in Boulder, so just down the hill. Oh, Will, do you want to chime in next? I know you already said hi, but.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Victoria. Hi, my name is Will Salish. I'm also a program manager with Water Now. I'm based in Golden, so also somewhat local. And yeah, thanks for having us today. Excited to get your feedback on what we're going to be presenting about. I'll pass it back to Carrie.
Perfect. Sounds good. I don't know. Yeah, Leslie, if you want to introduce yourself, and I think you're also kicking us off too. So if you want to roll into that, that works for us. Yeah.
Sure. I'll get us started. And thank you for the ACES members in attendance as well. We'll get you included in this presentation as well. Do we have the slides up? I don't know. There we go. So the town was very fortunate to receive a grant through the Water Now Alliance and this partnership working on sustainability and specifically sustainable landscapes and looking at irrigation upgrades and savings. So one of the main driving forces behind this, I think everybody's pretty aware that we have a goal to reduce our use of water, specifically through irrigation, and to try and be more efficient. It's spelled out specifically in the Sustainability Action Plan, but it has been a goal of the Parks, Recreation, Open Space Department for quite a while. So with the help of the folks from the Water Now Alliance, we've worked on some strategies and directions for water conservation. They have some experience with other communities who have gone down this road and best practices in looking at how we move forward with a plan. So, we've been looking at irrigation efficiencies, looking at getting some new irrigation clocks that are better technology, allows us to monitor a little bit better and provide water savings. We've also looked at improving our xeriscape and transitioning some of our median areas into xeriscape. So looking at moving away from the high water use irrigation heads to more of a drip irrigation and hardscape mix with a xeric planting plan. So there's some pictures of some of the examples, but really the projects that we've done in the past have been just based on opportunity. So either we got a grant or there was just an idea that here's an opportunity because of either a road project or some other project that an area became available to transition from turf to either hardscape, xeriscape, or something in between there. So you see some mention of NFT, and we're calling that non-functional turf. And so what we've been working with the Alliance on is really what is that? What is non-functional turf? How do we look at areas where we might be able to transition turf into something that's more sustainable? And that's really what this project is all about. And I guess I can kind of pass it over to the ACES folks now. I think, Jim, is Michelle there with you? Or is it just you?
You know, Michelle didn't make it unless she
Okay.
popped behind Leslie, so.
Okay, well, we made this presentation to the ACES committee at their last meeting, and maybe you can kind of cover how that was received and some of the responses from your group.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Leslie. I mean, you really covered the bulk of it, Leslie, and really hit on some things that were great to hear from my end and ACES's end. But in short, yeah, we've been, ACES collectively has been really pushing to be more water conscious in the town. As much as most of us love grass and it looks pretty. It does require water to keep it looking nice. And of course, we inherited this grass, most of us. It wasn't put in by choice. You know, I think if we had a clean slate today, we'd probably be doing things differently. But that's what was cheap and easy at the time, 25, 30 years ago, when this was all developed, was put grass where there's open areas. And so yeah, we really, I think that, and they're gonna talk about this, so I don't wanna steal too much of the thunder of this presentation, but a big part of this was determining, non-functional turf. I think when people hear taking away grass, they immediately think we're tearing up Purple Park. That's not the goal here at all. The goal is that anybody that walks around our neighborhood and has a dog or walks for exercise or all the above, there's a lot of grass. And you start looking around in between houses and fences and random spots. But the goal here is not only save water, but also save maintenance costs. Is we pay a tremendous amount of money to maintain all this grass. And so we want to replace it ideally with something that looks good, no maintenance, no water use. Of course, resilient to fire as well. We don't want to let it go wild and brown up and all that kind of stuff. And the reality is that in order to do this, we need help. We need professional help. The committees can't figure this out. The town staff can't figure this out. That's what you hire a landscape architect to do. You find one that is a professional that knows our type of soils and what grows here, what doesn't, what's low maintenance, all that kind of stuff. So we've been pushing in our budget with ACES and town budgets to get like an RFP out there to hire a landscape architect to do some of this. I know Water Now is at the beginning of that, this group that's been great to help out. And then the other big piece that they're gonna talk about here is the mapping of all of our zones. When I mean zone, I mean a water zone, where you have a valve serving a bunch of sprinkler heads and irrigating a certain part. Believe it or not, that has not been mapped ever. And so, and Leslie mentioned controls. I think all of us have driven around during thunderstorms and the sprinklers are going crazy. And so better controls is part of that too, but just mapping where is everything irrigated? Like we just talked about at the beginning of this meeting, there is open space that is irrigated. And I think a lot of stuff happens at night when town staff are off the clock. So not a lot of people are seeing this, but the residents see this stuff, or we see the random sprinkler watering the street. That's not supposed to water the street. So yeah, I could ramble on for a while, but point is that, we put together, or I put together a list of how to attack this. And I went over this with Brent, and I don't know if Brent's hopped on yet here. But I think that the goal here is to start with cheapest to most expensive options. Again, I think when people think about eliminating grass, we got to put in the nice looking, that stuff on the picture right there, which is expensive. But, you know, I think the first step is what I call commission the current irrigation system. And what I mean by that, when you commission anything, even a light switch on the wall, a table, you're making sure it works towards its design function, right? So if a sprinkler is running off in the street, that's not working per design, right? Or if a control system is not controlling something correctly, that's not working as it was designed to operate. So just, it's kind of like tuning up a car, okay? Commissioning a car is like tuning up a car. Like Leslie mentioned, improving controls. Leslie already mentioned retrofitting heads, the more efficient heads. You know, just for example, down here on Colton, you know, we got all those sprayer heads, and when the wind's blowing, half that water is blowing onto the street. You know, we could have sprinkler drip systems there too. Yeah, and then we also know the other benefit is removing turf all along the streets to save the street service deterioration impacts. And save water, you know, from runoff onto the street. And then mapping the system per GIS, which they're gonna talk about here in a little bit. I mentioned hiring a landscape architect. Determine the maintenance and water savings per acre of turf removed. I still think, Leslie, that's a number we've asked for a while, is, you know, talk to Vargas, but I think the town board would really love to hear how much water cost and maintenance are we saving per removal of turf? Because that's, any financial person will appreciate the ROI on that and the benefit of doing that. And then, you know, set some goals. You know, I think as we're doing this, do we want to remove 1%, 2% per year? What's a reasonable number? And then just include that in the town budget. So anyways, I took way longer than I probably should have, but is there any questions for me, or is that helpful? Give you a great background. And so ACES would really like, here we are working with PARC. I see it on your agenda to work with OSAC. I think it'd be great to bring the three committees together and water down the great things the town staff are doing, and maybe build some momentum to give a good business case to the town board. Yeah, so.
To what extent, I mean, that's nice and everything, but how about just, letting some areas grow natural?
Yeah, that's an option too.
Because, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of places around town that don't get used. And
Yeah.
Sprinklers want everywhere, and,
Yeah,
but like you said, like, it's not talking about Purple Park.
yeah, I mean,
There's quite a bit of, you
yeah,
know, golf greens.
yeah,
all around
exactly.
town, yeah.
And then really hard to maintain it.
Oh, yeah.
And so areas that had good intentions have good capacity, it's still brown and squishy and weedy and all that
Yeah.
stuff too, so. All I've heard in my time on ACES is how Matt Rarick is running around like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to keep the system working right, trying to keep the gas green. It's like, let's simplify Matt's life and downsize the system.
Reduce
It's easier to maintain.
Yeah.
You know, so I really do think there could be a pretty good cost benefit analysis to do this too.
Yeah.
In addition to saving water. And then I think the end all be all though is that, I shouldn't say if, but when we go into drought conditions and need to ask the residents of town to conserve water, it would be a really bad look for the town to be watering all this grass on a 90-degree day, which we do see. And that, I don't think that would be a good look for the town. So trying to save some emails in your inbox, Stephanie. So that's why we're trying to get ahead of this. Yeah, win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so
Sorry, I went way
much,
too long.
Jim.
Sorry about that, Carrie.
No worries, not at all. I think you did a great job of teeing up what we're talking about, focusing on some of the co-benefits of conversion and just kind of a great overview. So thank you. And yeah, thank you again for having all of us here at Water Now present tonight. So yeah, before we dive in to the presentation, for those who aren't familiar, Water Now is a nonprofit consultancy that provides expertise, support, and inspiration to a network of water leaders who want to build a climate resilient water future and help local communities and the environment thrive. And we do this by providing place-based assistance, educational opportunities, leadership development, and funding navigation. And our work with Superior, as you'll see on the next slide, is part of Water Now's Project Accelerator, which is one of our longest running programs. And through Project Accelerator, we provide up to 250 hours of pro bono technical assistance over 6 to 12 months to help public entities who have drinking water, stormwater, and wastewater authority to help design and launch sustainable water solutions. So it's not quite a grant, it's free kind of like support our staff time to help communities kind of with these sustainable water solutions. And each Project Accelerator is a little bit different because it's tailored to community needs, but a lot of our work in Colorado does focus on water conservation and efficiency. And then diving a little bit into the project a little bit more, as Leslie mentioned, Superior applied to Project Accelerator for support developing a strategic and a comprehensive process for upgrading irrigation systems and converting non-functional turf on town-owned properties. So we're really focusing here in this project on developing a strategy for transforming irrigated high water use turfgrass areas, like those cool season turf areas. And so this project has two main goals. One is to develop a clear, locally relevant definition of non-functional turf. And then second is creating a site prioritization framework that helps the town rank turf conversion opportunities. And then this project will culminate in a 5-year roadmap for the town. And this roadmap will outline best practices, funding opportunities, and prioritization criteria to guide long-term implementation. And we're carrying out this work in 5 steps. So we're currently in the bolded phase in the process of gathering staff and advisory group feedback about the direction of future turf conversion projects in Superior. And then prior to this, in steps 1 and 2, we reviewed relevant Superior plans to understand community water conservation and sustainability priorities. And we helped the town develop a non-functional turf definition. And then Superior then started mapping the town's irrigated turf based on this definition. And you'll get a chance to see both the definition that we landed on and the preliminary maps later in the presentation today. But next, we'll use the feedback gathered through our engagements to refine the non-functional turf maps and develop the prioritization criteria and implementation framework, which will guide how Superior identifies, designs, and funds future non-functional turf conversion projects. So now with that quick overview, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Victoria to talk more about defining non-functional turf.
Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, and I'm just gonna ground this in a little bit of background context, but Superior is not alone in thinking about, pursuing these types of efforts. Much of this work sits really within a broader regional shift that's happening across the Colorado River Basin. Many communities are already limiting or phasing out non-functional turf, especially in places like medians and rights of ways, parking lots, and other areas that primarily serve an aesthetic purpose. And in Colorado specifically, that direction is also reinforced by some recent state legislation that will limit non-functional turf in certain types of new development, as shown on the right-hand side of the slide. And this legislation really sets this high-level framework, but it intentionally leaves room for local governments to then define what non-functional turf looks like in each of their own communities. And sorry, can you jump back, Will? Thanks. And as already mentioned earlier today, but as communities are converting turf to water-wise landscaping, not just for water savings, but also for other co-benefits, such as things like reduced maintenance costs, stormwater quality and infiltration, wildlife and pollinator habitats, educational spaces, enhanced community aesthetics, and more, just to name a few. So there's a lot of different co-benefits that we can think about that will be included in this prioritization matrix when we get to that phase of the project. Okay, next slide, please. And as you can see from here, there is no single standard definition across Colorado or the West of how communities define non-functional turf or NFT. Many communities use a mix of different quantitative and qualitative markers and also use-based criteria depending on their goals. But I think if there's anything you could take away from this, there's like one common theme that's simple, is that non-functional turf is often where the only regular person using it is the person mowing it. So from there, on the next slide, we started by defining functional turf broadly. So We're calling a functional turf for Superior as irrigated, a maintained grass species that's mowed for that aesthetic lawn purpose. And then we focused on determining which areas can serve that civic, community, or recreational purpose, which includes things like athletic fields, designated play areas at parks, amphitheaters, your event spaces, any sledding hills, places like dog parks. And the definition then also covers where turf might play a role in stormwater management or erosion control or support some sort of municipality or utility operations, as well as any historic or interpretive spaces and cemeteries. So really here, the goal was to protect any of these high water, cool season turf grass areas like Kentucky bluegrass as a species that provide that clear value, while then giving us a way to identify maybe some other turfgrass areas that might be potential candidates for that conversion to an alternative form of landscaping. And so on the next slide, once we had that functional turf definition, we looked at some of the various types of criteria that non-functional turf could include. And then these are areas that are maybe not designated for that civic, community, or recreational purposes, and thinking about locations where maintaining that high water, cool season turf grass might be really inefficient or challenging. So some of the criteria that we identified in here include turf that's within and adjacent to parking lots, your road medians, roundabouts, and those public rights of ways. Turf that might be within a certain distance of the road or a building. Turf areas that have a steep slope of 25%, of course, excluding any of those sledding hills or those functional turf areas that we've identified in the previous slide. Or even like those turf problem areas where it's just been really challenging to establish or is really difficult to maintain. And so with this definition, we developed this to really serve as the basis for the spatial analysis, which Alex will go over some of the preliminary maps that we've developed in just a few minutes. But this is really to just start by assessing the extent of how much irrigated turf is on Town of Superior properties, how much of that might be non-functional turf, and then go from there to look at different sites, look at different types of criteria and areas and figure out which ones might make the most sense to prioritize first for conversion to an alternative form of lower water use landscaping or something else that might be more functional for the area. And so ultimately the findings from the spatial analysis are going to inform some of these priorities and goal settings and inform that 0 to 5 year roadmap that Carrie was mentioning. And before I pass it over, I just want to make sure that just as a quick reminder and really ground us in right now that these definitions are only applying to town-owned properties. Right now, this isn't extending to any private or commercial or other non-municipal properties. So that's something, the town could think about expanding in the future when you're ready to, think about other non-functional turf areas besides on properties that you own. And so just, keeping that in mind as we're moving forward through this, as we're honing in on the scope. But yeah, with that, I think we'll jump to the next slide and I'm going to turn it over to Alex to just give a high level overview of some of the preliminary maps we developed and some of the preliminary acreages that we have based on these, the NFT definition that we co-developed with the project team.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Hafling. I work with the Town Superior Planning Department, but in this capacity, I'm mostly just coming from the GIS mapping perspective. And yeah, so as Victoria had previously mentioned, I was able to take the definition of the non-functional turf and then interpret that into some maps of some areas familiar around town, focusing on major right-of-ways and then a few of the parks and kind of the surrounding area of those parks in town. And then basically taking the totals of that, as you can see on the side of the screen, and just to kind of get some preliminary numbers to start thinking about where this non-functional turf is, and kind of just to understand kind of that priority of where it should be taken from and converted. I think that's all I'll say.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Alex. Yeah, and so now that we've kind of had that quick overview of kind of like the mapping process and the preliminary results, I think we can dive in to some discussion questions now. So kind of now that we've walked through Superior's non-functional turf definition and gotten a sense of where some of this non-functional turf exists throughout the town, we would love to hear from you all your thoughts on mapping and defining non-functional turf in Superior's parks, given your all's knowledge and experience in the town's parks. So to start, we're going to look at 3 parks that Superior has already mapped: Purple Park, Community Park, and Founders Park. So I just really quick, do you all have printouts of the map in the room?
No.
No, but we know.
No worries. We're gonna show them on the screen, but no worries at all. Just making sure that when I'm we're orienting to things, we'll all be looking on the screen. That will be great. So yeah, we're going to focus on the areas labeled park turf, and you'll see what I'll mean in a second, which have the yellow shading. And we're going to discuss whether this turf kind of may be functional or non-functional. So I think we can go ahead and go to the next slide and start with Purple Park. So before we just dive into that question on the screen here, I'm just gonna kind of walk us through what we're seeing in this map. And Alex, feel free to jump in too if I'm missing anything. But so first, you can see that there's some solid purple areas on the map. This is the landscaping that is already water-wise or xeric. So it's kind of low water use and it's not included in part of our irrigated turf total or the functional non-functional definition. And then we also have labeled the right-of-way turf, which is in red, and then the right-of-way adjacent turf, which is in that orange shading. And then which, based on the non-functional turf definition that we showed, is considered non-functional. So this would be kind of the turf that the town will kind of look to replace first, because it's more of that low-hanging like fruit, kind of like it's easily defined as non-functional. Not a lot of people are kind of like using it, interacting with it. So it's like a lot of those medians kind of right along the sidewalk and between the street, like those types of areas. And then from there, we also have the green shaded area on the map, and that shows kind of the active recreation areas. So this is like athletic fields or designated play areas within a park. And these we're considering functional turf areas. So that leaves the yellow shaded, which you can kind of think is like the gray area turf right now. It's maybe not obviously functional or non-functional. It might be more so one than the other, but there are probably places where turf could be removed, like maybe there's some turf problem areas or places like that. So that's kind of the turf we really want to focus on today to kind of help with like defining and mapping all irrigated turf on the town and try to really get your all's thoughts on these like park specific pieces. So I think with that, maybe you can go ahead and start answering this question. Considering Purple Park, which areas do you think may be functional and which areas may be non-functional?
Yellow and orange. And purple. I can't see the T very well. That's already, the purple's already like partially zero.
Yeah, so I think if we're
Yeah.
just looking at the yellow, hopefully that'll make it easier, because it's probably not the easiest to see, but if we're just looking at the yellow, are there specific places within the park? Like you can name like, oh, over by the bench, by this sidewalk, like that's definitely non-functional. Or, maybe the area right around that green functional turf, like I'm not sure if that's, I'm not exactly sure what that is in Purple Park, but maybe right next to it is still functional, like people still use that space. Does that kind of make sense?
Within which color? Oh, sorry. Can you clarify that again, please?
Yeah, for sure. So we're specifically focusing on anything that is yellow because
Yes.
that's the one that we have questions on, and we're just looking. Yeah, just curious to hear your thoughts on whether you think it's functional or non-functional. And it doesn't have to be the entire area of yellow; it can be pieces within the yellow. But yeah, just focusing
No,
on
I think-
yellow.
If you're asking me, my personal opinion is that entire yellow area is non-functional. I run through there every three or four times a week. Yeah, and many, especially places on there's the pond, there's those two ponds, there's so much goose poop around there that no one goes around there anyway. Around some of the ponds, so, my question is, what would be a potential replacement of that, and what would that look like? Of non-functional turf in that yellow area?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And I agree. The other aspect, I've seen people, I don't see a lot of activities around like frisbee or, you know, sport activities. What I would see in those areas by the ponds, I agree, like right around the ponds themselves, lots of poop. I do think there's a desire to stock those ponds at some point, so people will want access to the ponds. But I do see people like walking their dogs and exercising their dogs in those spaces. So I think if you got rid of the grass, if that big lawn was completely eliminated and made it difficult for people to exercise their dogs, you might get some pushback.
Can I also offer the east side of Indiana there in the yellow on the more western pond? That's a gazebo and it's got the volleyball. I don't see a ton of people using the volleyball, but that gazebo-y type area is rented out by the parking lot. So I don't know that the council would be in favor of getting rid of grass there, because if it's utilized by like graduations and
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, exactly. I meant to. I saw that too, and I was like, oh yeah, we got to keep the grass there.
Perfect. Yeah, that is all super helpful. And yeah, to the kind of earlier question about what it will be replaced with, I think that's still definitely to be determined by Superior on a case by case basis with all of these projects. Some things like that have been kind of considered is expanding some of those existing like low water non-turf landscapes like that purple. Alternatively, looking at some hybridized grasses that just use less water. So they may be warm season and they don't have to, they won't be mowed as low. So that reduces maintenance costs as well. So it wouldn't, be too drastic of a like kind of an aesthetic difference in look and kind of like functionality as well. But Leslie, if you have anything more to add on that, feel free to jump in.
Maybe just a little reality check is, this is like the yellow area is a large area to turn from turf into something else. We probably would never go in and do it all, but carve out places within this yellow area to either turn them green, such as the area around the pavilion and the volleyball court, maybe, everything that's north of that kind of half circle pathway turns green, because when people do rent that pavilion, they utilize that that turf area. The other thing might be to look at areas where we have clumps of trees where we could install drip irrigation, but we don't need grass there necessarily. So I think Alex has captured some of that in the orange along the side of Rock Creek Parkway there, where we have some stands of conifers where we have, when they were small, there was grass there. Now that they're big, there's not much grass there. And we could just convert that completely to a non-turf area. but continue to drip irrigate the trees. So, but just a little reality check. We probably would carve out little pieces here and there because the expense of doing all that yellow at once would be astronomical.
Yeah, and that's why I was asking about what would be the replacement. I mean, would there be a possibility of just letting the grass grow and not cutting it and letting it grow natural? Or that would be potential fire hazard?
Well, it just as the open space areas and community park, we have to probably mow them or graze them at least once a year to maintain that wildfire mitigation. So you wouldn't necessarily have to mow them all the time. Also, when you let Kentucky bluegrass grow wild, it doesn't necessarily turn into nice open space native grass. So if we found areas that we wanted to convert to native, I mean, it's still grass, but we wouldn't have to necessarily maintain it as often. We might look at introducing native grass seed, some pollinators, doing some things like that. One, to make it look interesting and aesthetically pleasing, but also to have that biodiversity, if that helps at all. We're still learning what works, what looks good, what people like, what survives on low water. And the other thing that we have to keep in mind is that when we carve out a project, we have to look at like a whole irrigation zone, because we'll have to rework that irrigation. And so dividing these areas up will probably look a little bit different than this map, just because of where the irrigation, how the irrigation is designed and where those zones fall. But just some additional information.
One more area to consider not converting is that east side of Purple Park as you're kind of walking in from, what is that? That's not Indiana.
Riverton? No, it's not, no,
I'm blanking on what it is.
Is that Pitkin? You're thinking
Pitkin.
Pitkin?
Thank you, Leslie, Pitkin. Basically on either side of Pitkin going into Purple Park, because when you do the, like the egg hunt and that kind of thing, kids are right there, like the little kids are on that more southern side. So I think you might want to maintain turf going into the park and then across the street, obviously with the pavilion like we discussed.
yeah.
So that,
Just-
so no, I guess it's kind of north of Pitkin all the way up past the playground, probably to where the
Yeah.
bridge, where that footbridge is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because with the egg hunts and everything, the kids are using that. I mean, I see that used quite a bit. And it's kind of a nice, entrance into the park itself. But it is utilized.
I think that's called Hartstrong Pond, the one that's right south of Pitkin. I think I've seen that on a map that, so maybe north of Hartstrong, in between Pitkin and that pond south of it. Also where that pavilion is, keep that all the way it is right now, but that whole swath yellow going all the way south to, what is that?
Indiana.
It's Indiana, yeah, so, I mean, there's all of that is unused.
Yeah.
Completely, so keep that yellow.
Awesome. This is super, helpful feedback. Any last comments on here before we move on to the other two parks? Great, then I think, we can go to community park next. So looking at the same question here, looking at these yellow areas and kind of, any areas that should remain functional or should be classified as non-functional.
Hey, out of curiosity, Jerry or Leslie, have you guys run these maps by math yet?
Matt Rurick,
Yeah.
I mean, he's seen them, but we haven't gotten to, you know, really evaluating where the irrigation zones fall, at this point yet.
Yeah.
How would this work with large community festivals like Chili Fest where
Mhm.
that grass is like that whole area is used for the trucks and booths and people are walking around and that's kind of a big area that's used for festivals like that, 4th of July. How does that work with native grass?
I mean, I would say that the swath of yellow between the two baseball fields would need to be maintained as turf. We also have a little drainage swale in there. And I would almost say everything west of the parking lot to the playground. You might be able to get some edge areas that could be native, but you know, the playground kids overflow the playground and like to run up and down the little berms there. So I would almost keep that all from that playground on the west or from the parking lot on the west all the way past the playground area, I think should be green.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I run to this place every couple days as well, and I would think that a lot, what you said, I would agree with what you just said, Leslie. Between the two yellows, between the soccer fields out there, those yellow areas, I don't think we need to have those irrigation out there.
I would say to the east of the multi-purpose rugby football field there, that area between the pathway and the field, we do use that for seating for games and practices.
Also for movie nights. I mean, that big grassy area,
Mhm.
we use it for movie nights. It's really hard to make a decision without knowing what the material is going to be in the yellow area. I mean, one thing is if it's not organic at all, that's going to suck. Like if it's just rocks and gravel, or that would not be super awesome. And then if it's tall grasses and it makes like walking between these areas difficult, that would also not be great, especially around the playground or between the two kind of informal soccer areas there on the west side. So it's really, really hard to make an assessment without knowing what that yellow is going to be.
No, that's a good point. People do walk from those two open grass areas on the west side. They do walk between those. And so if nothing else, we would want some of that retained as seating. You know, if I see families hanging out there while their kids are playing on the fields there.
It seems
What
like there's so.
about, go ahead.
I was gonna, sorry. There's so little turf in Community Park anyway, and so much of it is like kind of natural. And you know, I do like. There's not a whole. I mean, it seems like this would be the one area, the one park you may not want to. It totally makes sense for like the park by Indiana, like all those spaces by Indiana. But this park, so much Community Park is already natural. And then, like, so during Chili Fest and things like that, people will go between the soccer field and the baseball fields and just hang out and on that hillside and stuff like that. So there's not a whole lot of turf there. And by the playground, you know, parents are hanging out on the hill, watching their kids, sitting in the grass, watching their kids play. So like this one feels like diminishing returns.
Oh, this is good feedback. What do you think about, so beyond the outfield fence of the baseball fields where it's kind of steep as it drops down to that trail, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that does not need to be irrigated. Yes, I would agree with that. They're very steep.
Yeah, behind the pavilion. Yep.
Mhm. That might be an area we could look at conversion. Okay.
On the north side of the ball fields and the rugby field, the soccer field. I was surprised. So are we actually actively right now seeding the yellow areas with Kentucky bluegrass?
We're not, I mean, what's there is what's there. What was
Okay.
original, what, you know, we're not doing anything to those areas currently.
Okay. No, I'm just like,
Um,
why, there's some, I think there's other grass types for the areas you wanna keep. The turf as like for like fescue as opposed to Kentucky bluegrass. That's just a side comment, but
mhm.
fescue is a lot less water that needy than Kentucky bluegrass. So if we are seeding that, I would say definitely change that to something other than Kentucky bluegrass. As you know, those areas you want to keep, but if we need to, but I mean, for this exercise, but if you look at all the there's a bunch of trails and all natural areas. I don't know if it's irrigated or not on the north side of Community Park. And at certain times of year, that natural grass is beautiful. It goes up into the, some of the valleys up around some of the open spaces, and the natural grasses look great, in my view. I don't know if that's ever an opportunity, to just let things grow like that in some of these, in some, small portions of these places.
Mhm.
Maybe that's part of the plan, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the desire is to keep that as native as possible, knowing that we have to do some wildfire mitigation there
Yeah,
occasionally. Yeah.
bring in the
So that,
goats.
yeah, and the goats, yes. So that little inset in the corner is where the basketball courts are. Off of, so Indiana and Colton. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts of the yellow area around the basketball.
Oh, I think that's fine. Yeah. I think that's totally fine to let the grass go away there.
Agreed. There's some cottonwood trees right on the south side of the basketball. That whole turf is all, it's all rooted. It's tough to run on. So, I mean, I don't think we don't need to seed that or water that with grass, I don't believe.
Are we, this is a total sidebar. Are we going to resurface that basketball court? I think that was one of the maintenance things we were talking about. And we put new baskets in, but were we going to level it and resurface it? Because it's still kind of parking lotty.
Yeah, it's not on the schedule currently, but it's something we can definitely think about for the future. It does have some tree root infiltration, so.
Yeah, there's like there's the tree roots. It's like broken up. It's just basically a parking lot with the balls and then sloped. So like it's like a triple whammy.
You have to play going uphill, Tim.
You're gonna have one big calf and one little calf.
Are we strictly looking at parks for things like this, or are we considering, I know we talked about medians and things, I'm looking at Google Maps here in between Indiana and like Rock Creek Circle on that south side, there's a huge swath of turf that people walk the sidewalk along, but nobody's really in that. Are we looking at stuff like that too, as opposed to taking away turf in park areas that might be utilized?
I think those are kind of the easier low-hanging fruit, is the areas between the streets and the sidewalks, and even, anything that's along a roadway, because of the concern with maintenance. We struggle with turf in the medians everywhere. So I think the reason why we're focusing on parks tonight is just because we have the park committee here. But I think the other areas are actually the easier first projects to look at. You know, the parking lots, the medians, the what I call a streetscape area. And those are smaller pockets, so they're a little bit easier to carve into affordable projects.
And to build a
Thank
little bit on what Leslie just mentioned, as you can see on the map here, we've already mapped some of those, what we're pretty confident are non-functional turf areas in the orange and the red. And that's why we're really looking for your input on some of these yellow areas, which I'm gonna call them gray areas now. It's like some of these areas could be functional, some might not be functional. And with all of your on the ground knowledge, that's what we're hoping to focus in on today is just the yellow part. Since that's a part that we're not quite sure, how you all want to define it. So
Yeah, I mean, for me, I struggled with having to irrigate patches of, this does not seem like a lot of area where the one that's highlighted right now in Community Park in yellow. It does not seem like a whole lot of area. If I had my druthers, I would advocate for having all that xeriscaped. And just not have any, as long as it's something you can walk on, we don't need to irrigate, those grassy areas, because like I said, I run a lot on these trails and there's a lot of water coming across all the bike trails all around the park. To irrigate grass, not a whole lot of grass there. I just don't know if we need to keep all that Kentucky bluegrass, or fescue. I wouldn't mind seeing all of that xeriscaped with gravel or whatever. Just put some native grasses in between and, maybe some other, and call it a day.
If I had my druthers, I'd rather have it organic, like native grasses or, something like that rather than gravel. I really don't like lots and lots of gravel. It just makes me feel like I'm in Arizona. But like native grasses are awesome.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, you're still working through all of town, right? Like this is called as phase one mapping, is there still, you go running, we all go walking, there's a lot of trails that have grasses on both sides of the trail, right?
Yes.
And so not used between the fence of a house, like all of those trails that shoot north there from the ball fields.
Yes.
You got 20-30 feet of grass on the east side of the trail up to the fence line. And so, and then you gotta overlay all the zones. This is a huge step that Alex has taken just to get the beginning of this.
Absolutely.
But there's more phases of this map.
I mean, this is
he's working on.
There's some of these, community park, especially when they get it rebuilt, is gonna be pretty high use. And it is right now with a lot of sports. As much as it is to maintain, these sodded areas, grassy areas, I would be an advocate for just the xeriscape in that whole area in yellow. That's just me.
This is all, super helpful. I think it underscores how much of a gray area it is and how much, personal preference can play into this for sure. But maybe we can move on to our last one, Founders Park, because we don't want to take up too much of your all's time tonight. So yeah, moving on, this will just like our last one, and then we have one last question for you all, but same kind of question here.
So one of the things that Park's been doing is every month is going out and touring. Is one park a month, and we've been doing that pretty much for the 2.5 years I've been on the committee. So we just did Founders Park, I believe in September timeframe, somewhere around there, maybe August, I can't remember. But that area is so huge. I'd never been there like a tour like I did. So like I said, I don't know what we would do other than all that grass. But I would, and we even talked about it in one of our meetings about that whole area. That whole green area on the left is just massive. And that's, people can play sports on that place. There's some rock boulders in the middle, go down the middle of that thing, but,
We've actually, actually real quick on that space, since you brought it up.
yeah.
We recently relocated those boulders to the, north side there along that Sycamore. Cause we're looking at repurposing, adding some new soccer fields there to accommodate, Rush Soccer Club. That group who we're having trouble accommodating them on, the Commons athletic field, so we're gonna shift them, some of their stuff to this space in the spring.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Plenty of space for it. That's
Plenty of
perfect.
space for it, yeah, multiple fields will be able to put.
Cause we were talking about maybe having to remove some of the underutilized trails on the east side. Is that east? I don't know whether, yes, east.
Yeah.
But we did the tour, and there's that area on the whole west side is so massive, and we didn't think that was necessary, but. So to further answer your question on terms of the yellow, I just don't know what else would be put there. I wouldn't include taking all of that area up because it's so huge, but it's definitely underutilized. All of that.
Let's see, am I muted? Oh, yeah, so I'm super stoked to hear that there's soccer fields or fields that are going in on the west side there. Because we have that softball field that, is just for show. So actually getting some usable fields there would be awesome. So that makes sense to keep that all turf 100%. And then there are posts there for slacklining. Is the yellow, is that extending into those slacklining areas so people wouldn't be able to use the slacklining anchors anymore in that spot?
It's a good point. So where the restroom is, I think has purple around it. The slack line is, I think, to the west of that.
Just west of it, yeah, it's that whole area.
So we might want to carve out some green there just to have turf under the slack lines. That's a good point.
And I would keep turf because I do a lot of I've gone to a bunch of kids' birthday parties at this park. And the kids play in the park, obviously, but they also like to run around just to the west of the pavilion. There's some trees and stuff over there. And then parents like to sit on the slopes around the playground. So I would keep some grass, a margin of grass around the playground. It's also good. It makes it because kids are running between these different play areas too. So yeah, and nobody wants to sit on rocks.
So the areas between the different playground circles or whatever they are, playground pits, we could maybe color green to keep that usable.
And then right around the lunch pavilion, because there's a climbing rock over there too. And then around that lunch pavilion, it's weird. It's hard to see without the topology because there's like some hills and trees and stuff like that. So some of it's not that usable. But like I've been to a bunch of birthday parties where the kids are running over into the field or into the area to the west there.
Got it.
But nobody on the north side between the parking lot where people park and the playground like that, nobody really uses that area.
So when you guys were there touring, did you look at the new xeric garden we put in along Coal Creek on the south side? It's that little purple square in the orange. Did you look at that? Did you like it?
I don't think we were looking at that. I was thinking that was any private property or something. I'd have to go back and look. What is it now, Leslie?
So that was a pilot project that we kind of carved out just a little section, and we took the turf out and put in all xeriscape plantings, pollinators. It's got some rock in between, but it's it's an example of a project.
Yeah, awesome. I'll drop by that. Report back.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question? Did Founders Park get any damage from the fires that came through in that area a few years ago? And wondering if you could just speak to any of the changes or rebuilding efforts that went into it and how it looks today.
The fire moved through there very quickly, so we had a lot of surface grass that burned, and the playground safety surface, the engineered wood fiber burned. So the renovation there was fairly minimal. We had to replace all the safety surfacing under the playgrounds for the most part. We improved the drainage there. We had to remove a lot of the just wood chips that blew into the rest of the turf. So a lot of raking and reseeding of the area, and some irrigation repairs, but we might have lost some smaller trees, but we didn't have significant damage to the structures, the playgrounds, or any of that.
Gotcha. And did either of the other two parks we chatted about today have any impacts from fire moving through, or were those ones out of line?
Community Park had fire damage along the creek, but not into any of the turf areas, so to speak. Actually, the fact that the grass was mowed and fairly moist probably helped contain that spread.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing, Leslie. I just figured I'd ask since we're kind of just came to the top of my mind, just looking at where all the parks are oriented in relation to each other as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I would generally agree with keeping most of that area, that yellow as such.
Feel like us keeping it as the turf that it is now.
No, I'm sorry, keeping that as underutilized turf.
Got you, okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant, sorry.
No, all good. Perfect, that sounds good. Any last thoughts here before we ask our last question? Well, I think, yeah, we can move on. This is just kind of continuing on with your experience, thinking about which parks we should think to map next. So I think, as we've mentioned, Alex has already done a phenomenal job mapping all of the right-of-way and identifying that as kind of the low-hanging fruit, highest priority turf conversion opportunities. But kind of looking forward, like at some point we would love to have a map of like all irrigated turf in Superior. So from your experience, maybe where is a good place to turn our eyes to next?
Trying to think of parks that have a lot of grass. There's not a lot. I mean, what about the it's not necessarily a park, but along Colton, there's huge swaths of grass along Colton behind the apartments. Is that owned by the apartments across from the Safeway? And then behind, and then there's a huge swaths of grass too between, like, behind Community Park and Colton, and then the other side, whatever the and Rock Creek, South Rock Creek. Is that?
It's a huge field.
There's like a ton of grass there that
I'm
could
sorry.
totally be.
What are you saying, Tim?
When you're going down Colton, so if you're going down Colton, if you're going east on Colton, you go past Indiana, and on both sides of Colton, there's a ton of grass.
So
Oh, yeah.
the areas between like the sidewalk and the road have already been identified as non-functional.
Yeah, that's already been done.
that hillside, on the south side of Colton,
Yeah.
that's privately owned.
Oh, that's part of the,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, Rock Creek. Okay.
I would say Circle Park.
Mhm.
It's just a big circle of just soggy grass that I rarely see people out there off the side, off the bike trails. And it's always super soggy, and every, along all the sidewalks on either side, spider webbing out from that. And that's just not, if they're in, and that must all be irrigated. But that whole circle inside Circle Park, I mean, I think there's probably some opportunities to do something with that whole big grass area.
I assume
mean,
we're gonna put this all out to the town, right? Because I think the people that live there, uh, they're gonna have feedback, right? Because they're the ones that, I mean, they're gonna use that as an extension of their lawns, their yards, walking their dog, like with their dogs and stuff like that. So this is gonna go out for feedback for the neighbors to be able to kind of say how they're using that space.
Absolutely. And, we're starting with you all to kind of, I mean, we've
Okay, cool.
identified, bazillion acres, but
Yeah,
we can't change all that in 20 years. So
right.
we're going to keep like fine tuning it and fine tuning it down. I have heard that the Circle Park area, that people do use that for kind of open play, fly your kite, go throw the ball, walk your dog, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
maybe some of those where the trails go and we have turf on either side, maybe we can look at some of those areas.
Another one would be Riverbend Park. Just massive swaths of green golf course lawns, that's irrigated. And like I said, there's so much goose poop around Riverbend Park. It's hard to walk around that pond. And that's one of the things that I would be up for, just having taller grasses, because that might actually move the geese along for fear of predators. But that would be another park to look at, because there's large swaths of lawns and very soggy grass all around Riverbend Park. And the Riverbend Pond.
That makes sense too, because the area south of that is all natural. So if you go south of Riverbend Park and you cross Coal Creek, then there's that really cool open spacey area that makes its way towards 88th.
Yeah,
It's between that.
toward to the east. You mean, Tim?
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. I live on Wildona, so that whole area. I think there actually do have sprinklers out there. I don't see them going very often, but they could turn all those off. Probably. It's pretty exposed in there, and but they used to have a cascading waterfalls all the way down there. Used to be ponds all the way down there going
No way.
going east. Yep. There's used to be rock walls and a cascading series of little ponds all the way right south of Wildona.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah. It's now it's just overgrown with what do you call those, cattails.
Yeah.
But
That's wild.
other areas to look at.
Because that would, if you did that with Riverbend, that would be really similar to the park that's right off of Pitkin on the other side of Purple Park.
Manicure. Is that new?
Oh, yeah. South
People
Pool.
use that?
Yeah, well, that's some of those are, there's big lawns down by South Pool.
Yeah, those are
I don't-
used. Those are used.
They are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. There's a family that every Sunday they're playing volleyball on there, and people they're exercising their dog on there. Their dogs. That's definitely used.
Yeah, okay.
There's, there's like a greenway, uh, um, uh, near, Hyacinth Way. It goes from, if you go from Pirate Park and you go north from Pirate Park on a bike path, there's a bunch of greenways there. It's similar to like the Circle Park area, but again, people might use those as an extension to their lawns. It's not that much green grass to get rid of, so they might want to keep it.
Great, well, that's all super helpful. I think, yeah, just thank you all so much. Your kind of local day-to-day knowledge is super helpful in defining things, and just kind of shows that, like this mapping effort is hugely valuable to kind of getting totals and getting an understanding, but like the ground truthing is going to be really key to this project, and kind of as we're case by case deciding what will be replaced. So yeah, with that, thank you again so much for all of your feedback. Our contact information is here in case you have any questions for any of us. But yeah, with that, we'll let you kind of continue on with the rest of your meeting.
Yeah, just like one final thought. I'm just sitting here looking Google View here. Google. I think the town's done a pretty good job with not having a ton of turf. I think if we go too overboard, like getting rid of Circle Park area and some of these other spots, we might err on the wrong side of getting too much turf taken away. Again, like Community Park, like most of that park is natural. And these little greenways, I think they are used as like extensions of people's lawns. And there's again, if you look at Google Maps, you can see like a huge portion of what we already have is already natural. There's yeah, yeah.
No, I think that is a great point, and I think that's kind of why, Superior has decided to focus more on that right-of-way turf initially, because that is just a little bit more less used by the majority of people, and kind of, as we noted, might be easier to parcel off into more manageable projects. But down the line, it's just great to have kind of this inventory of all the turf and kind of preliminary thoughts on how it might be categorized into non-functional and functional. But yeah, that thing that you all said today is like final, like that's gonna go in like the maps forever. Things are still very much, being drafted and iterated upon. But I think this is just, definitely super helpful in general as we're continuing.
Yeah, we're not gonna xeriscape and put gravel like Arizona, lay it everywhere, right? I mean, it's,
Exactly.
I'm definitely not advocating for that, but there's a lot of grass that could be, that's getting watered a lot, so, that doesn't need to be, because it's underutilized.
Yeah,
So,
I would say what Louisville has done, especially near Monarch School, like that, they did a really good job of uh, keeping things organic, but then like low impact. Where where we have erred more towards rocks. So like a lot of the stuff we did along Rock Creek Parkway when we xeriscaped, we like xeriscaped. We put like colored rocks in all over the place. I would prefer to do something more like what Louisville did with natural grasses and stuff like that than more colored rocks.
Yeah, that is great feedback as well, and that's part of like the implementation framework is considering kind of what will be the replacement landscaping. So definitely we'll keep that in mind for sure.
have y'all taken a look at, you should go take a look at one of the only, I think might be the, one of the, well, might be the only, but, natural kind of lake and surroundings that we have in at least the Rock Creek part of town is Pitkin Pond. That does not get mowed. It's the most natural looking pond that we have in town, in my view. And although maybe it is irrigated, I'm not quite sure, but it is beautiful on any given day of the year. No green turf at all, and it's just natural grasses around the entire periphery, no goose poop anywhere. And it is, I'm not kidding, there is no goose poop anywhere. Because the grass is tall, so the prey doesn't want to be around that lake like they do everywhere else. So as an example, I'm not saying like do that for everywhere, but I'm just saying, if you want to see an example of what could be done just by letting it grow, that's it.
Is that the
It's
pond that's
also, it's
right near the
also
Rock
the
Creek?
only pond in town with fish in it.
Oh, really? Is that the one that's
Yes.
near 88th and Rock Creek Parkway near the circle?
Are you talking about Bull's Pond?
No,
Pond.
Pitkin Pond is off of Pitkin, it's east of Rock Creek if you're going north on Rock Creek, take a right on South Pitkin. And it's that pond down there, down the hill.
Oh, yeah, that is nice. That's a great park. That whole spot. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's highly used with the trail with trails all the way around it, even though there's like grass that's knee high. It's a beautiful pond.
Yeah, it's nice.
Oh, yeah. But the
Nice, well,
finish
yeah, I'll
finish
check
up
it
to
out,
me.
and it's nice to know that you have like examples already of, yeah, like non-irrigated Kentucky bluegrass that like the community can look to kind of understand, yeah, what some of these landscapes could look like in the future, for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, sweet. Well, I think, yeah, well, with that, we'll let you get back to the rest of your meeting. But yeah, we enjoyed presenting to you all and really enjoyed your feedback, and definitely, yeah, feel free to reach out if anything comes up.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah,
See you
thank you.
later. Yeah.
Bye.
That was fun.
Yeah.
One took up 3/4 of me.
Oh, yeah, really. Oh, yeah. Well, we don't have much, do we?
Well, next we have, Alex Bullen, sorry, I just take your thunder here, Alex Bullen for this next agenda and, town staff. Alex, sorry, or thanks for your patience. Took a little bit longer, but it was good combo.
Sure. Yeah.
You need to share a presentation, correct? So let me
Yes.
make you co-host here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm co-host now.
Yeah, should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me go ahead. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. And everyone can see the PowerPoint here.
Yeah.
Good deal. Well, I hope this is at least half as exciting as non-functional turf. I'll do my best here. But I'm Alex Bullen with the Public Works and Utilities Department. Been with the town for about 10 years, and I'm here this evening to tell you about the town's latest trail wayfinding project. So first I'll give a quick overview of trail wayfinding projects that we've done here in Superior. In 2017, we worked with neighboring jurisdictions along the US 36 bikeway to deploy consistent signage along the bikeway as it was constructed, with the primary goal being to direct people to the RTD transit stations, because at that time the Flatiron Flyer was new, so we wanted to let people know about it. And that's the sign you see here with the US 36 bikeway on the top and signage towards those stations. Then in 2018, the Calmonte 2 neighborhood came online. We adapted the design a little bit, made it a little more Superior specific, and we put some trail wayfinding signage along the trails throughout that neighborhood. 2018, we also did wayfinding signage along the Superior 36 bikeway, which was the trail we constructed along 36 on the south side, connecting Davidson Mesa through the marketplace and past the hotel and the plaza over to Coal Creek Trail. And then in 2024, we installed regional trail wayfinding signage. So this is for the Coal Creek Trail, the Rock Creek Trail, and the newly constructed a few years prior 88th Street Trail, which connects the US 36 bikeway where it crosses 36 at Avista Hospital, connecting that point all the way to 88th Street and down 88th Street, down Rock Creek Parkway, and eventually to the Rock Creek Trail going through Autry Park. And that's this sign here. You can see him out there on 88th Street. And then here we are in 2026. The next project we're looking at is signing some walking and biking to school routes. And that's what most of this presentation is going to be about. And then, in the future, what we like to do is have more signage throughout town on the local neighborhood trails, Circle Park, Purple Park, just really telling people how to get around. And, Superior has such a great trail system. So we want to do whatever we can to get people out and comfortable on those trails. Okay, so why school routes next? Why are we choosing to do this now? Well, last year, in 2025, we did pretty extensive community outreach for the Vision Zero Action Plan, which is our traffic safety plan, and our 2025 transportation plan update. We found there was considerable community support for more wayfinding on the trails and communication on the roads, et cetera. We've also seen some pretty neat success stories in our neighboring communities, implementing more trail wayfinding signage around their schools. The ones I know of are in Niwot, Boulder, and Louisville. Speaking to their staff and some of their residents at their open houses, it's a neat thing, and it's working pretty well. So, why not do it in Superior? Fourth, the public health benefits, we all know it, right? You get out on trails, you get fresh air, you get exercise. If we can get people out of cars, we're decreasing emissions through those neighborhoods, we're decreasing cut through traffic. A lot of benefits to getting people onto the trails. Strengthening community identity. You run into your neighbors, you have more conversations. I'm preaching to the choir here, but we want to encourage that as much as we can. And then also just general partnership with BBSD. We're in this public service sector together, right? We all want to make Superior a better place to live, better place to walk around, get your kids to school, raise a family. And we have real opportunity to do that by improving some of our trail wayfinding. And then additionally later this year, BBSD is going to begin the process of doing a Safe Routes to Schools plan, where they're going to look at their schools in the district and come up with recommendations on how to do basically this, how to sign better, how to communicate better around getting people to walk and bike to school. There are some grant opportunities that come after you've made a plan. So we'll be partnering with them later on this year. And really these kinds of plans, they're great. They come up with a lot of recommendations, but a lot of times it's pretty boilerplate. And the more data we can give them ahead of time about what works in Superior and what doesn't, then the better the recommendations are going to be. So, as staff, we want to get ahead of this a little bit and try some things out and get better results out of that planning effort. So I've outlined some challenges here with the wayfinding projects that we've done. I've been a primary person on those 4 installations I showed earlier. And, there are some challenges to the traditional route, what we've done before. So they take studies, take site plans. We have to order materials, which are getting more and more expensive. Installation is, you have to site each individual post. You're putting in new posts, you're doing locates. There's permitting involved, and it can be a lot more time consuming and expensive than you might think just putting signs in the ground. We've also found that traditional wayfinding deployments tend to focus on adults and people that are already using trails. People that are commuting, people that are enthusiasts for the trails. It gives them more information, but it doesn't do a whole lot to get more people onto a system that they're not comfortable with. So that's a gap that we're trying to fill. And we've come up with some solutions through our own brainstorming and also speaking with advocacy groups and neighboring communities. And the solution we've come up with is to do a pilot project with paint templates and some smaller placards on existing poles. Benefits of this approach are the cost is minimal. You know, it's 10% or less the cost of traditional wayfinding deployments. We can do it quickly, so we can get ahead of the BVSD Safe Routes to School planning effort. And we've heard from our neighboring communities that it's easy to reach families. Easy to reach families and children, because if you look at the height of these signs, these placards, you know, they don't have to follow the same height requirements as full-size signs. So the trail wayfinding signs we have out there now, they're 7-foot minimum height to the bottom of the sign. And, you know, kids are shorter, right? So we're able to put these placards at a lower height and maintain compliance with transportation regulations. And then we can put kind of a cute design and make it more welcoming. And we've also heard feedback that, you know, a lot of people like these markings on the ground because there's so many signs out there. You know, sign clutter is a real phenomenon. And when you put the name of the trail on the ground or just put a marking on the ground, more people see it. And apologies for my formatting. This is one of those things that it looked great when I saved it, and then you open it back up and it changed its mind. But you know, another thing this provides is an opportunity to brand or name some trails that don't have names. You know, Superior has a lot of trails that connect major destinations but don't have names. And that doesn't necessarily have to be solved now with this project, but it's just something to consider as we move forward.
Most of our ponds don't have names either. We've talked about that. I call it Bigkin Pond because there's no name.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I think so. It's
Oh.
never labeled anywhere.
Oh.
Yeah, or they'll have names, but you know, in Public Works we talk about them. Oh, this is Pond 313. This is Pond 5, and there's not a whole lot of rhyme or reason. Pond 4B. You know.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a wish list that I keep, and one of my wish list items is to have a pond naming contest with the public. You know,
We talked about that when I first joined PARC 2.5 years ago, but it never went anywhere.
Hey, let's make it happen.
Yeah, I like it.
But you also wanted to stock some of the ponds, which I think is an awesome idea. We should still definitely do that. I can't believe it's been 2.5 years you've been on the committee.
Yeah, I know. That didn't get any traction, Tim, so I stopped talking about it.
Oh, sorry, dude.
That's all right.
So I've got when you're done with your presentation, I do have a question because there is an interesting sort of wayfinding and safe schools issue happening right now on the way to Monarch along 88th, and I know most of that's probably Louisville, but I think the Superior is working with Louisville on this, and there's a whole lot of grumbling around the current solution, which honestly does kind of suck. But I definitely want to bring that one up when you're ready.
Yeah, we can talk about that. I have one more slide after this, and I'm happy to get into discussion about this plan, 88th Street, and anything else trailway related.
Awesome.
So I just had one last point. You know, one more benefit of this solution is that, you know, in contrast to traditional wayfinding, new signs, new posts, you know, doing something like this where we're doing paint on the trail and then a small, inexpensive placard on an existing post, it allows us as staff to be a lot more responsive to trail user behavior changes. You know, every group of kids, every cohort of kids and cohort of families is a little bit different in how they use the trail system. So if we're finding that, you know, we signed the west side of Indiana Street and then everyone's walking on the east side one year, we can easily go out and lay down some paint, get another inexpensive placard, and just be more responsive to how people are using the trails. So next steps for this project, we need to finalize the routes. You know, this is a rough map we've drawn up of sidewalks and hard surface trails within a mile or so of Eldorado K8, which is the school we want to start with. since it has older kids as well as younger kids. Once we finalize the routes, we'll map out the existing posts to put those placards on. Would like some feedback from PARC on a few items. You know, the logo design template for the pavement markings. You know, do we do just a color? Do we do a name? Do we do a name and like the town logo as a separate template to add more community branding to it? You know, just something to consider there. You know, another item for feedback, in particular, the Indiana and Colton intersection. You know, it's an at-grade crossing. There's pedestrian buttons, but there is a safer route here, the underpass underneath Colton Road. You know, this is just a decision we have to make, right? Do we direct people to the underpass, even though it takes longer? Do we direct them to both? Would like some feedback on that. And then, of course, the naming of routes, right? Like, do we call this the Yarrow Loop or the El Dorado route? Or, you know, is there any appetite for figuring out even one route name and giving one unnamed trail a name? You know, just want to put that out there. And then when these items are complete, we'll schedule installation with our sign vendor. I've already got some pricing, and it's folks we've worked with before. And it's really pretty inexpensive. They're good folks. And then we'll coordinate outreach with BVSD so they can let their families know to keep an eye out for these new designated routes. And happy to take any questions or look at more maps or whatever y'all would like.
I think it's a great idea with the, I love the idea of having the Town of Superior logo on a, so I would be one for fewer signs, big, huge signs. Maybe it's because I live on Wildona and the end of our web down there, it's like these massive multiple signs at the end of that now cul-de-sac, for the emergency access. And the signs are just, in my view, a little obnoxious because there's like so many of them, but they're so big. The more like on the street, like you showed, you know, ones that are actually on the pavement, although that wouldn't help very much during the winter time if there's snow. But I'm just more of a proponent for fewer big, huge posts everywhere for signage. Or like you said, there's like maybe some opportunities to put some smaller signage on existing posts. That would be totally fine with, but those huge 7-foot, 8-foot posts are just so massive. I think there can be too many of them. So combination of those ground level new names on trails, I love that idea too. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, that was our thought. Let's try something a little bit different, smaller scale, get the message across. You know, we're thinking about the kids too, so it's shorter, smaller, it can be charming, without the big kind of overwhelming signs.
We PARC specifically, it was about a year and a half ago. We were tasked with putting together, helping the staff put together the the trail courtesy campaign. And that whole idea kind of, I don't know where that went, but the idea was to put some smaller signage for trail courtesy messages on existing signage on the posts and stuff like that. It's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, Kevin, I worked with him a little bit on that.
Kevin Cologne, yeah.
Do a QR code, do you do a message, do you do a logo and design? And did those ever get deployed, or did that kind of?
They were sent out through emails, through communications, but I don't think that any signage ever actually made that, or QR codes, or, I don't think the courtesy campaign for the signage ever went anywhere, I don't believe.
Okay.
It was mostly just through electronic messaging.
Yeah, well, that's the nice thing about those placards is you can change them out. You know,
Yeah.
what's the message that the community needs? You know, right now e-bike safety is a big deal, but maybe in a couple years when people get the message about e-bikes, it can be something else. Like, hey, we're noticing a lot of trash, pick up a trash, and then you put a $50 placard on the post. You know, it's just a really easy, quick way to get a message across.
Yeah. some of the new signage you've been doing around town looks really good. I've been really impressed with it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, love to hear it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So are you guys involved with the like what's going on the 88th for this Monarch thing and interfacing with Louisville? Is that part of
Yes.
you guys?
Mhm.
So I'm sure you've been seeing the feedback, but like bi-directional along 88th, that was a real bad idea. I know that's not you guys, it's Louisville, but uh, it's unclear what the long-term plan is, but I think widening the sidewalk so that the elevated sidewalk is both a walking and a bike path is way better than trying to get bi-directional on a bike path on that east side. Uh, Even if you put in like flexible bollards, it's, I mean, you're gonna have kids like biking into traffic, like into the direction of traffic. And then on the end of that, on the intersection end, where they have to interface, let me just pull up the street names. They're kind of just dumped into that intersection. And same thing on the bridge side. It's not a really smooth transition, but it would makes a lot more sense to widen the existing sidewalk into both a sidewalk and a bike path, and it's elevated and it's away from the road. And that also would allow for a right turn lane, or at least widening the road there so you can accommodate a right turn lane so that you don't get the big traffic backup, because the problem is that people pull into the bike lane to let other people go by in the mornings, and then that blocks up the bike lane. But then it just that whole area, yeah, the whole thing just it doesn't work. It's now it's dangerous. Are you guys getting that feedback from parents and stuff?
Right. So we'll just back up a little bit on the 88th Street. So I think part of what happened is the installation is not complete, right? So what we're seeing out there, that's not the final vision. The flexible posts are supposed to go up, and the bi-directional comes from the fact that right now that's what kids are doing. I mean, everyone is riding on that side and biking on that side, and you get bikes are running into kids walking, vice versa. Kids are walking out in the street. So, it's a temporary solution to get people to just walk on the sidewalk and bikers to be in the bike lane. We're not trying to encourage anybody to go bi-directional. It's just that's the behavior now. So the long-term plan is like what you're talking about, expanding the sidewalk or doing a more permanent installation to protect the bike lane, doing improvements on the west side. The issues, we're running into a number of issues why we can't just do that immediately. Cost, talking $500,000 to $1 million to expand that sidewalk. We got Red Tail Ridge coming in, and they're making a number of improvements. And then the bridge itself, so that's kind of a fun journey. So it's a CDOT structure, so we need permission from CDOT to do anything there. The roadway surface itself, there's kind of no one's taking responsibility for who owns the roadway surface. So in a way, this is kind of an opportunity to get either CDOT or Boulder County to finally own up to who owns that surface and start maintaining it. Because both, it's not Superior and it's not Louisville because our jurisdictions end, but that section of roadway, it hasn't been maintained. So we're using this as a bit of leverage to get somebody to finally take responsibility for maintaining that asphalt surface. And then once we do that, we can actually start having these conversations about making improvements to the bridge. But until someone takes responsibility for that, there's nothing we can do. And we do have future plans to apply for grant funding to make permanent improvements. But the thought was, hey, there's a safety issue out there now. So let's protect people from what they're doing already. And then we'll look at a long-term solution. And we also want to see what impact protecting the bike lane has on traffic. The nice thing about those flex posts is that they're removable. They're inexpensive. And we'll get to see how it affects traffic. before, widening the sidewalk or putting in something permanent and having some unintended consequences that are then really hard to reverse. So I guess
is it possible to get either Boulder County or CDOT to put in a right turn lane, an extended right turn lane? It probably needs to go back like a half a mile or a quarter of a mile, because when you get, especially high school, you'll get a backup all the way over the bridge, and it's a huge relief to be able to have the cars basically where the bike lane is right now. It allows the through traffic through. That's going to be huge, is making sure that they widen it almost from the bridge to Campus Drive, so that people can pull over to the right, and then extending the bike path and widening that so it's elevated in a way all the way to the bridge. That'd be the best case scenario for that spot.
The long-term plan on that, I believe, is to extend Campus Drive to go to South 96th Street, but I don't know when that's gonna happen. Do you heard anything?
Oh,
about
yeah.
that?
There's no
There's no plan on it.
it's happening, we just don't.
Right. That's the long-term plan. So that would alleviate probably a lot of traffic going in and out of Monarch, both schools. If they had that other connection on the east side of Campus Drive, then maybe the bridge won't have to be widened.
I don't know, man, because I think most of the traffic's still coming from Superior.
Yeah, there's a lot of Erie and Lafayette and coming from, anyway, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a mystery. What it's too bad, because there's a really nice bike path on the north side or on the west side of 88th. So if you could just get the kids to go down and around and on the bike path, but that's a bit of God, yeah,
it's tricky. I mean, I hear you. We went through a lot of different scenarios. It's tricky. The west side, you have a sidewalk and then the sidewalk ends. So then do you pour a connector between the sidewalk and the US 36 bikeway? Well, if so, then you're having kids cross 88th Street. If they're coming up on the nice multi-use path, the 12-foot path we built on the east side, then you're having them cross 88th to the west side and then up and crossing over again. Do you want to have them cross 0 times or 2 times? Yeah. And then Louisville has concerns about the signal timing around Campus Drive and 88th and emergency vehicles coming in and out. There's not a great solution. We really need more time to come up with an ideal solution. So the thought was, there's dangerous behavior now. Let's do what we can to make it safe, partnering with BVSD in Louisville, and then continue to evaluate it in real time.
Yeah, I think the opposing bike traffic, it's probably a time of day, right? So most of the kids are probably going north in the morning, and if they are going south on the wrong side of the road, it's probably in the afternoon, right? There's probably not kids going either direction at the same time.
Not really, no. We did some field observations too, just to verify this. So it's really the kids are going north in the morning and they're going south in the afternoon.
Right.
There's still the bike lane and the paths on the east side for southbound. We're not getting to that. We're just trying to protect kids that are maybe not making the best decisions, but
yeah.
And part of this, we're improving the crossing across Tape Drive, which I guess has a new name now. But someone got hit on their bike by construction traffic.
Oh gosh.
We're doing some extra paint, and I think we're even looking at doing a raised crossing there just to add more protection. I mean, it's just I agree it's a little messy. But this seems like a good move for now, and then we'll be evaluating it.
Yeah.
So in other news, I would say I live in South Rock Creek. I would say the only thing that could probably use a little more thought, and it's not bad now, is the crossing of Colton farther to the east. So by the Safeway. So whether it's the Rock Creek Circle going to Rock Creek Parkway or Rock Creek Circle that just kind of dumps into the on the other side across Colton. Um, but I mean, it's not so bad. Both of them are controlled intersections. And that light is super responsive on Colton and Rock Creek Circle. It's awesome. But I'd say that's the only tricky thing with kids is that crossing of Colton there. But
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. Something I've been looking into because I do the traffic signal timing. There's an option with we've upgraded our controllers, and apparently there's an option where you can program in a couple of different values for walk times. And I think it'd be super neat to have like you press it once and you get your normal.
yeah.
And if you press it twice, then you get a longer one. If you have kids or you have mobility issues,
Yeah.
just to give more time.
That's a great intersection. Whoever did that light timing is awesome.
Love to hear it.
All right, Alex, hey, sorry, yeah, Burton stepped out, no, usually we try to wrap up by 9, but we got quite a few more items to get through yet, but I don't know, did you, were you needing any additional feedback from these guys at all? Appreciate your presentation.
Yeah, no other feedback at this time. Just wanted to make folks aware of what's coming, and if there is any feedback on those couple items like naming, logos, Colton Underpass, feel free to shoot them to me or shoot them to Brian and make it over to me.
Oh, yeah, so just to clarify, that additional feedback that you had for PARC, will that be at like a future meeting? Will you circle back with this group when this project progresses? Is that what that means? Or?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. This is my first PARC experience, so
Okay.
however y'all like to work.
Yeah, I just don't want to speak for I mean, obviously there's quite a few group members not here, so I know they'd certainly like to weigh in if there's another opportunity down the road.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, we'll chat.
Sounds good.
Cool. Alrighty, well, 2 minutes to finish your meeting.
Not happening. Thanks, Alex.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks. Okay, sorry. Thanks, Evan. Thanks, John. Yeah. Already kind of wrapped up without.
All right.
There.
Sorry,
Yeah.
That was good too. 3E, we might need to postpone this to February, maybe, just to given time.
Yeah. Thought our fearless leader here, Brent, yeah, and not having the related numbers, it's kind of needing some more folks to probably discuss that one.
I think so.
Yeah.
So 3F, possible collaboration, we already talked about that earlier in this meeting. So 3G, plan for usage of discretionary funds for future swag orders. So I think we probably just keep doing what we've been doing on that, right?
Yeah, and Brent didn't connect with me towards the end of last year. I think he was out of town, so there wasn't another order with those remaining funds last year, but
Okay.
5,000 again for this year, so
Okay.
the group can chat about, kind of replenishing that and other items for this year,
Okay.
depending on what you guys wanna do.
All right, any new business or updates?
Man, you are breezing through this.
What was that?
So you are breezing through
I
this.
am, well, yeah, I am breezing through it, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, real quick, just some kind of applicable project updates. Community center reception desk, if you've noticed, recently started construction on that new reception desk, here at the community center, construction will be complete by the beginning of March, and that children's area is actively being relocated to the back of the building. So that's happening. North Pole renovation, the final design will be submitted for permit next week. Project will be put out to bid in March, April timeframe. Construction slated for the 26-27 pool off season. South Pole, design of South Pole began in late September and is on track to be completed in late March 2026. An updated schematic design was presented to town council at their January 26th meeting, or no, not 26th, 12th meeting, January 12th meeting. Staff will advertise the project for construction bids in April and present a construction contract for award to council in May, with construction occurring during the 26-27 pool off season along with North Pole. And then lastly, community park playground project is gonna start in March and hopefully completed by May on that, so. And that's it for project updates. Are you taking notes tonight, Burton? Oh, okay, cool.
You doing it all.
Wow, all right.
Summary points. Trying to keep it succinct here. All right, we were unable to hold leadership election for PARC due to lack of quorum. So we'll move that to February. We discussed ideas for new PARC members. Superior partnership with Water Now Alliance gave a nice presentation on potential opportunities for reducing non-functional turf. Alex Bullen gave a nice presentation on safe routes to school, wayfinding signage for school biking routes and commuting. We'll do the amenities and services list next in February, maybe finish that, and then discretionary funds will probably just replenish for 2026. And you gave us some updates on Superior Community Center reception desk. Construction will be completed by March, as well as updated timelines for North and South pools and the community park playground. And with that, I guess we'll be adjourned.
All right. Thank you guys online, Lindsay and Tim.
Yeah, see you guys.